All right, you turn friends. I feel like I've heard from you in the DMs that I've been leveling the hell up with some of the magical people coming on the show, as per usual. And today's no exception. We've got Pace Morby on the show. He is host of A&E's most popular TV show, Triple Digit Flip, one of the most creative real estate investors on the planet. He's used so many non-traditional strategies called creative finance, and he's acquired thousands of doors nationwide, and he's built a portfolio of over $450 million in assets. And he teaches so many students, tens of thousands, in his online communities, which is becoming the go-to source for anybody really looking to get started in real estate. And I was also checking out his book, Wealth Without Catch, which is the subtitle is Supercharge Your Real Estate Investing with Subject to Seller Financing and Other Creative Deals. And if there's anything I've learned about people that work in finance or numbers, it's that they are so much more creative than we even freaking realize. We think they're just hanging out on one side of the brain, but that's just not even the deal. And so, Pace, I'm so excited to have you today. I want to talk to you about business building. I want to talk to you about real estate for people getting started, and
Yeah.
just grateful for your time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's interesting when I hear my intro, I'm like, oh wow, I've done a lot of stuff. That's interesting. I don't even think that way. Also, I think it's really daunting for a new audience member to hear all of the things that I've accomplished. Like, oh, you have $500 million in real estate and you've never used a bank. Wow, that sounds so far out of reach.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
the topic of what we're going to talk about today is a lot of the opposite of that, which is like where let's go back to like where I was and where maybe you were, Ashley, when you were just by yourself. How do you start building a team? How do you afford that team? How do you
mhm.
become a great leader to attract the right quality people? And then um, is there such thing as work-life balance? I think we're going to touch base on all these things, which is really great for probably 90% of your listeners.
Yeah, definitely. And also, even deeper than that, Pace, like I was looking at your Instagram stories just the other day, and you were sharing about your brother Corbin, who
Mm.
passed away. And I actually have a similar story. My sister Stacy, big sister. Um, so Suicide Awareness Week was just about 3, 4 weeks ago, was it? And my dear friend Nick Pigeon wrote a book called One More Day that just came out, all about suicide awareness. So I feel like some of the brightest lights, some of the most talented business owners, when you look at their hearts, they've been through so much pressure and pain. And so I felt called to just start with like, who are you as a person? What has affected you and what has motivated you? And I don't know if sharing about Corbin would resonate just on that note.
Yeah, of course. I come from a family of 12 kids. Same mom, same dads. They're still married to this day. And I learned work ethic. I learned how to love community, meaning, my parents would wake me up 5 o'clock in the morning. We'd read the Bible together and then share verses. And then my mom would have us share, like, okay, well, what did that verse mean to you is great, but how are you going to use that today in the real world? My mom was very much teaching us how to implement things that we're learning right there in real time rather than like just being somebody that takes notes and, puts those notes on a shelf somewhere. I learned that from a young age. But the challenge with my mom and dad is my mom and dad, having 12 kids, worked so much that I think a couple of my siblings did not thrive in that environment. One of them being Corbin, my brother, who was just a year and a half younger than me. We shared a room growing up. There were times where we fought. There's times where we were best friends. There's times that, we fought over girls and all the things and fought over the cars that our parents had and all that kind of stuff. And then when I got a little bit older, probably about 15, 16, my brother Corbin got into, it's a really kind of a hard story. I won't get emotional because
Yeah.
I've used this trauma as an accelerator in my life rather than something that's going to be an excuse for me. And
Yeah.
but where it came from, my brother Corbin got into drugs and started hanging out with the wrong people, actually came from my older brother Chance.
Mm.
My older brother Chance was like 16, 17. He was sneaking out of the house at the time. And one night, my brother Corbin, who was like 12, literally 12 years old, goes, "Can I come with you?" And so my brother Chance says, "Yeah, no problem. Like, what's the harm? Like, you're my little brother. Let's go hang out." Next thing you know, my little 12-year-old brother's drinking and he's hanging out with these wrong people. My brother Chance went on to become the bookkeeper for a multi-billion-dollar company and the controller for a multi-billion-dollar company. Like the substance abuse was not an issue for him. It was more like a recreational type of thing. But my brother Corbin, the demon of those drugs just got a hold of him. And I think some people are just a little bit more susceptible to that than others. And my parents went through hell with Corbin.
Mm,
And even though he was, you know, the funniest guy in the room, the most charismatic person in the room, he had demons that he was dealing with, and he just never got rid of them, sadly. And he got on harder drugs like meth and other things like that. And everybody in the family was trying to help him. We're church going people. My mom and dad were always trying to get him help, get him help, get him help. But I remember my mom and dad saying stuff like, Corbin's never going to get helped unless he hits rock bottom.
mm,
And I'm sure we've all heard that to some degree. And I'm 24, 25 at the time. My brother and I were still really good friends, but I was married to a woman at the time that just, she was the wrong fit for me.
mm,
And the wrong fit for me was that I have an addiction to helping people, and that's, I feel like, a good addiction. And my brother needed help one night, and I was standing at my front door. He comes and knocks on the door. He goes, I lost everything. I need a place to stay before in order for me to get on my feet. My wife was up 5 steps behind me as I'm in front of the front door, and she's whispering essentially over my ear, like, you better not let your brother in here. You better not let your brother in here.
gosh.
And long story short, my brother ended up killing himself a week later. I
Mm,
blamed myself. A lot of people in my family blamed themselves. And it was a really traumatic part of my life. And I used it as an excuse. I used it as a way to not only not honor my brother, but actually, in a lot of ways, I was using him in a really dishonorable way. I was blaming my lack of success and my lack of momentum and my lack of living a powerful life on my brother's death. And then
mm,
I got a coach, and I got a coach that helped me go through it and shift the way I thought about things. And he says to me, it was so powerful, and I still do this to this day, probably monthly, at least quarterly. He says, Pace, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write down all of the amazing things that are going on in your life. Pick one. And whether it's your wife, I ended up divorcing that woman, and I ended up getting remarried. I've now been with my existing wife now for 16 years, but he says, just pick one person in your life. Pick one thing in your life today that's like, you would never give up this one thing in your life.
mm,
And what's funny is I picked my daughter Corbin, who I named after my brother in order to honor him. I picked her in this conversation with him. And he said, okay, great. So you have this powerful thing in your life that you would never give up for anything, right? And I go, yeah, I would never, I would die before I give up my daughter Corbin. There's no way. This is the thing that's in my life. That's the most important thing. It's my why. And he goes, okay, great. I want you to now imagine that you have access to a time machine. And I want you to go back, and I want you to fix that conversation when you told your brother he couldn't stay with you. He needs to go somewhere else. And a week later, you blame yourself for the passing of his life. You can change that. You can go back and let him live in your house. But I want to let you know that everything now in your life will be completely different.
mm,
You're not going to have your existing wife. You're not going to have your daughter, Corbin. You're not going to have the things that are in your life, the relationships that are in your life. You're not going to have all the things that are going on in your life. You're going to miss out on your children. And I broke down into tears. And he said, I want you to remember that your trauma can bring you treasures if you let it. And you need to thank your trauma, be grateful for your trauma instead of blaming your life on your trauma and all of these things. And it helped me not just kind of break through, it helped me accelerate into another level of who I was meant to be. And now I live my day trying to honor my brother rather than blame his death on maybe my misfortunes or my failures and all of those types of things. And I think same thing with your sister. I'm sure that you honor her instead of
yeah.
blame her for things.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew there was something, and I just felt called to ask you this story because it's not every day that I know somebody who lost a sibling, whether it's addiction or mental health. My sister had an addiction. She became homeless. There were many times she came to my door. I was very motivated financially. It was 2015. I was really hungry to make a ton of money, and it was right when Facebook ads began. And my number one motivation was, how do I like earn enough money to support this person so she's not homeless? And we would hear the same thing, like, well, you can't enable them. And I do believe there's truth in that, and there's, expertise there. But yeah, she was a motivation for me. And so I was curious kind of like how that impacted you. And I love where you left it, where these traumatic and challenging experiences It's interesting. I think a lot about now when I have my startup, and I think anyone listening maybe can relate to this, where I'm like, man, I got my partner Neil, and we want to buy a home and start a family and do all the stuff. And I'm like, God, it would be so much nicer for my business to be a little easier now and to have all these things and to have the kids. But then it just hit me, well, by the time I have kids, I don't know if my dad will be here. He's 81. I don't know if my dog will be here. Like all the little things and big things that make up my life, the alchemy is going to be different later. And so you will get the things you wish for if you keep putting your time on them, right? It's not like all luck, right? It's, like Oprah and all these people talk about preparation meets opportunity. You keep going, you'll be met. You knock on 1,000 doors, your knuckles are bleeding. Eventually you get a yes, it's just math. But, but yeah, it's like realizing how much things will change and to not be careful for what you're wishing for, but to be grateful and to do work on yourself so that those hard phases are a little lighter on the spirit because it is really freaking hard to like do anything if
Yeah.
you're down too low. And it doesn't mean that your lows don't deserve to be the lows, but they don't have to last as long and you don't have to be in suffering. You can feel the pain and work the pain and then keep moving, which is what it sounds like you did. Um,
Yeah, it was actually that story rant that I went on came from a DM that I got that day that inspired me to tell that story. And it was a lady saying, I just feel stuck. I can't move forward. I have trauma in my life. And I was like, okay, well, let me tell you how I deal with trauma.
yeah.
Like, let me show you the recipe for how I deal with it. Is like, list out 20 things that you would never give up for the world right now. Go back and fix your trauma in a time machine. And guess what? You've just erased all the 20 amazing things that you have in your life. Like Neil, your partner.
Yeah.
If anything in your past changed 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, Neil would not even be a thing in your life.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have to look at it and go, look, these are all treasures. I just have to be the one with my eyeballs open looking for those things and be grateful for every day. And it helped me get unstuck and it helped me build the business I have today. And it still to this day, I now realize this is the end of the story that I was never able to tell was about when my brother came and knocked on my door and I said, no, you can't stay here. He said, well, can I use your garage to put my stuff in it? I said, yes. So he takes a whole truckload. I help him load his stuff into my garage. And after my brother passes away, of course, now we've done the funeral. My parents couldn't even cope with it. So I'm the one dealing with the thing. Nobody had
Right.
the money. It was 2008. So the world was basically just falling apart because of the economy. Nobody had any money. We couldn't even afford his tombstone. It was just
Oh,
a whole thing. And about a month later, I look at the stuff in my garage and I go, no, not yet. 6 months later, no, not yet. 2 years. It took me 2 years to go into my garage and start going through his stuff. And the first thing that I found was his journal.
oh my gosh. I found my sister's journal. This is such a trip of a conversation pace.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the first story that my brother told is he said he wrote the happiest day of my life.
Mm,
And the happiest day of my brother's life was he started it by saying money has poisoned my father, my family, etc. because all of my best memories are when my family had no money.
mm-hmm.
And he went on to tell a story about like this is when I'm 12, Corbin's like 10. My dad is painting on the side to support the family, and my dad would take us to job sites every Saturday. And my dad would pay us, $3 an hour, $4 an hour, whatever. But there was a day where we're on this job sites in some older lady's home. We're painting her living room, and it's time for lunch. So we run down to the gas station, and we run down to get potato wedges and like fried chicken and a soda. And we take all of our stuff up to the counter, and my dad pulls money out of his pocket, and he doesn't have enough money.
Mm,
And my dad is an amazing father. He says to me and my brother Corbin, let's go home and let's go rummage the house for coins. Let's go into the couch cushions. Let's do this, that, and the other. This is back in the day when you could actually find coins around your house.
yeah.
And we went back to our house. We found like $7 of coins around the house and like whatever. And we went back to the gas station. We got the chicken, we got the potato wedges, and we sat there in the front lawn at this old lady's house that we're painting her living room. And we just hung out as father and two brothers. And my brother just said, these are the moments that I miss. And, when my brother got older, pace. When my dad got older, it just became about money. It was just all about money.
Mm.
And those memories nobody seemed to be looking for more of those memories. And it just seems like our family is no longer a family. It's just, money hungry, blah, 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 blah. And he criticized me in this journal, and it was hard for me to admit, but he was right. And then towards the end of the journal, he talked about, I just need help. I just need somebody to look at me and help me. I have this demon that's inside of me. It wakes up every morning and it needs its fix. And I can't fight this demon by myself. And he's writing all these things in the journal. And here I am. The day before or the day after he wrote that part in his journal is the day he came and knocked on my door. And I refused to help him.
Mm. Heavy.
And so where this hit me in trauma is now I probably am overcompensating in my life is that, we give away a lot of money. We have sober living homes we own. We do everything in our possible power to employ as many people as we have. We have 600 employees now, 9 different companies. And so I
Hmm.
look at that as my penance in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
People are like, what motivates you? I'm like, the fear that I'm not doing enough to honor my brother. They're like,
Yeah.
it's not your motivation to be a billionaire. I'm like, no, it's my fear that I'm not doing enough to honor my brother.
Hmm.
And so anyway, it's and also in my personal life, I am trying to do those potato wedge and chicken finger moments with my daughters every day and not make it about money, make it about those small little simple moments with your family. And money it's really tough because I know we'll get into that today too.
Yeah.
I make millions and millions and millions of dollars. I have $500 million in assets. I will never worry about money ever again. And yet I'm working harder today than I ever have.
Exactly. This is the thing. Isn't this just the thing? Wait, okay, you've touched on some things and they're random for me, but they're also sensible for everybody. Number one, so I don't know if you know this about me because we met at that dinner, but we haven't really sat down. So I worked in counterterrorism during Obama administration. And the interesting thing about that was I was on the track to join potentially CIA, DIA, or NSA. And I spoke a lot of languages, which I've only kept up one, which is French, but I was going to be working on North Africa, Middle East, North Africa. Al Qaeda was like the thing. Now nobody talks about Al Qaeda. Everybody talks about ISIS or this or that. But um, I realized so much about myself. I didn't choose to be on that path. And I eventually became a career coach, which is a whole, thought of itself. I did that for 12 years. And I had this client who ended up taking the path that I was trying to take. Because being in the CIA, there's a lot of nuance to all the different types of jobs you can have. People just think you're a spy and you go into foreign countries and you do, but there's many different nuances of that. There's many different functions of being a spy. Not everybody is just out there converting people into an asset. There's people that are a part of that assembly line. There's people that are identifying the person to convert and they don't do the converting, right? So there's so many different things, right? Um, and I met the girl who did the exact thing that I wanted to do. And I was her career coach. I was coaching her out of it. And I had this moment where it felt like to live is kind of to grieve. And because even though there's all these great things that you do, you have to lock in and choose one. And that's what life is, right? You can change your mind, you can course correct, but in order to really build something, you kind of lock in for a while, right? And unless you're some sort of unicorn, which some people are, and that's awesome, but most people aren't building their big thing in 6 months, right? So she spent 25 years in the CIA, and I was helping her pivot out into crisis communications because she wanted to have a normal life. But some of the stories that I heard her share, it felt like a ship in the night just passing me by of like another path I could have taken that I didn't.
So
And
interesting.
I think it fucks people up because if anybody's listening right now, it's FOMO, it's scarcity, but what you're really touching on, especially with your brother Corbin and that whole story is with trauma is like we just don't really know how things will unfold. And all we can do is be grateful. All we can do is course correct if we don't like where we are. I think there's too much pressure in society right now around the word loving what you do. I think when I was a career coach, I would tell people before I started my agency now, I would say, like what you do and be sharpening a skill set that you're meant to be using in your work. Like, what is your best skill set? Is it helping you get better?
Such an interesting conversation to have. Like here's how I look at like career choices, and I'm sure you look at it the same way, is that I go, they're all stepping stones and warm up procedures for what you're meant to actually do. They're
Yeah.
there to get you ready for the big game. And so I look at every transition in my life as a 5-year transition, kind of like a Chinese bamboo tree. Do you know the story
Yeah.
about the Chinese
Yeah.
bamboo?
I mean, I would love for everybody, if there's a version of it you can share.
So the Chinese bamboo tree is really interesting because a lot of people in here that are trying to be entrepreneurs that are learning from you and being coached by you, Ashley, are sitting there having people in their lives, their spouse, their kids, their coworkers, everybody criticizing them for working and watering a dream, watering a seed that they have in their mind of like, oh, I want to be a real estate investor. I want to be a this. I want to be a such and such, whatever it is that they want to be. You're going to have people that are around you that criticize you, especially when the results don't come immediately. And you look at your neighborhood. Just imagine your neighborhood. I look out on my neighborhood and I can see all the houses that are in my neighborhood. And imagine your neighbor, whatever neighbor it is. For me, my neighbor that I envision in my mind, his name, he lives to the right of me, two houses to the right of me. His name is Tom. If Tom came out of his house every day with a watering canister and he came out and he watered a bare piece of dirt for not a week, not a month, not a year, but whatever amount of time. How long, if he did this every day, how long until you walked out to him and said, bro, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like nothing's sprouting up, nothing's working. You're watering dirt every morning at the exact same time. What the freak are you doing?
Yeah.
And his reply to you is just wait, just wait, just wait. And then all of a sudden, after 5 years of this guy, 365 days in a row for 5 years in a row, watering this piece of dirt, all of a sudden a little sprout comes up. And that sprout in the next 90 days grows 15 feet in 90 days.
Mm.
And there, funny thing is, this is not a magical story. This is a real story. This is called the Chinese bamboo tree. It takes 5 years to water every day. And what the Chinese bamboo tree is doing is it's digging its roots so deep because it knows how fast it will grow once the roots are super, super deep. So the plant is highly intelligent. It's working on things that you can't see. They're not visible to the eye because they're surrounded by dirt. And so the analogy is basically when you're working on your existing career and the thing that you're currently working on today, what are the roots that you're working on? One of them might be telling better stories, how to communicate better with people, how to make friendships with people faster, how to raise private capital, how to look for a deal, how to do this, whatever it is in my niche. What are those roots in your life that you are working on right now that will convey into the next level, which would be the bamboo tree shooting up 90 days, 15 feet?
I love that because it reminds me of a couple friends. Like if you think about the coaching industry pace, like which I actually find it entertaining because anybody that's in real estate coaching, I feel like you guys are far away from the spiritual life coaches for some reason. I just feel like I don't see the real estate coaches and the spiritual people. But anyway, I mean, not to say that there's anything to that, but a lot of my friends who are in spirituality, life coaching, whatever, there's really two types. And I'm a quick mover. I am so quick. I feel like the little kid on the preschool that's like, neener, neener, neener. Like I'm just off. I'm gone. But I do have some coach friends who they've been working on their body of their work, head down. It's so unique. It's so different. And you hear the glacier of insight beneath them when they start to talk. And there's some of them that I look at them and I'm like, you're going to be like a 50 something medicine woman on stages, like with like ancient, deep wisdom that is just not available when you move fast sometimes.
Yeah.
So I love the reminder that you're sharing. And I also, it's always fun for me to talk to somebody who can sit across the screen and say, I've made millions of dollars and I don't have to worry about money anymore. I'm building my business. I don't necessarily have a vision for myself where I have millions and millions and millions. I'm more simple, like, but not simple compared to a lot of people, right? Like I probably want $5 million saved in my, my investments and I just want to live off the interest and have some modesty. My partner Neil has a venture fund. He wants a really he plays to win in a much bigger way than I do. And that's just his vision and the impact he wants to have. I think a lot of people in their career feel guilt if they just want to make a lot of money. And I feel like there's this dialogue sometimes of like, well, but I also want to make all this impact. And I always grab people's hands when I'm at dinner with them, like friends of mine. And I'm like, if you just want to make a fuck ton of money, I'm here for you. I'm here for that shit like all day
Yeah.
long. You do
Yeah.
you. And because I just think that's what life is. We're all here. We all get one shot, and or at least to my knowledge, who knows what people believe and what shots we get. Um, and do it on your terms. Get what you want. And if you get what you want and you don't actually get what you wanted or what you thought it was, that's all part of the journey, right? So okay, bringing it into you with real estate, which I find really actually fun to talk about because I think I've found two camps of people in real estate. I'm sure you've seen them until your face is blue with all your students. The one camp is the people who are really scared of it and it's foreign to them. And it feels like the other camp that like it's the only investment route that they totally feel like they can get their head around, like it's a hard asset. I'm thinking of people listening to this show right now who maybe they're sitting in their condo and it's their first purchase. And they're like, wait a minute, I want this thing to be my first thing that I turn into a real estate portfolio. So I want to meet that person right on the ground floor.
Yeah.
How does somebody start to think differently
Mm,
about money, numbers, and real estate so that they're a little less intimidated and maybe they can do
okay.
that little lily pad in?
Okay, so let me tell you where I got into real estate. I was a contractor for 10 years. How did I become a contractor? Because remember, my brother Corbin and I used to paint for my dad. So I learned how to work with my hands and I built a construction company. And I was so jealous and envious of these people that were out there flipping houses that would call me and say, Pace, will you come and do the renovation on my flip? I see you're a contractor. I saw you on Instagram, et cetera. So I did not know real estate. In fact, I was intimidated by real estate, but I knew how to swing a hammer and paint a house, type of thing. So here's here the way I got into real estate is 11 years ago. And it was a woman named Bethany that helped me out. And I won't go into that story. If you guys want to hear that story, I've got that on my YouTube channel. It's a great story. It's the bunny story. I
Mm,
would type in Pace Morby bunny story. It's a great story how I got my first deal. But here's the lies that I believe everybody has been told when they are trying to get started in real estate. Number one, you not only don't need a license to do real estate, it's better that you don't have a license. I've never been licensed. I never will get licensed. I don't know why people get a license to go do real estate. Being a licensed real estate agent is a job that averages $60,000 a year. And most real estate agents, 90% of them cannot afford to pay their own car payment. I call them undercover agents. 90% of real estate agents are being supplemented by their spouse, paying them to stay in their real estate business. It is such a horrendous way to get started in real estate. And I thought for me, I had to get a license. I don't have a license and I buy tons and tons of real estate. How do I buy tons of real estate? Well, Pace, don't you have to go through a bank and get a loan? So lie number two is I have never in my life acquired a loan to get real estate. Not
mm,
one time have I gone into a bank and applied for a loan. Not one time. I have 2,132 rentals, 2,132 rentals in my portfolio. Not one time did I fill out an application. Not one person in my company fill out an application. So that is a lie. Well, lie number three, you need down payments. Lie
mm.
number four, you need credit. Lie number five, they need to see your W-2 and your pay stubs. Okay, well, how is this possible? Let me just give you one very good example of it. I've got an RV park. I know that seems daunting for people. When I started, I did my first multiple thousand transactions 10 years ago was all regular single family, 3-bed, 2-bath house. That's where most real estate investors get their start. Because again, just like Ashley said earlier, my original career is I pivoted. I learned so much about real estate and single family that I go, oh, I can do RV parks and mobile home parks. And now I'm doing a lot of multifamily, like big apartment complexes.
Mm,
So let me just give you a quick story of the latest deal that I closed. I have a seller, and where you can find these deals, you can go to Crexy.com, Crexi.com, Crexy.com. It's free to go on Crexy. And I want you guys in the audience to just go to Crexy and go into the search bar and type in owner finance. Okay, if I did it with Ashley right now, we'd find 15,000 properties across the country, hotels, restaurants, car washes, laundromats, apartment complexes, single family homes, does not matter. There are 15,000 opportunities right now you could buy on owner finance. What is owner finance? Owner finance is where I go to the seller of the property and I say, I'd like to buy this property from you and make payments to you over time. Oh, wait, what? Make payments to them? Yes, that is correct. It's just like going to your friend and saying, hey, will you loan me $10,000 and I'll pay you $1,000 every year for the next 10 years. That would also be a loan, right? That you got from a friend without a credit check, without a bank, without anything else. So I go to the seller off Crexy. I go to Crexy.com. I find a $5 million RV park and I call the seller. His name is Eric. And I said, hey, Eric, if I gave you the $5 million purchase price, would you let me make payments to you? And you might ask, why would the seller do this? Why would he say yes? Why wouldn't he want all $5 million right now in cash instead of letting you make payments to him over a long period of time? Well, this is the same for small houses and condos and dirt lots. Anything, any type of piece of real estate you see out there, you're driving around. I've done hundreds and hundreds of every single type of transaction you've ever seen. Mobile homes, mobile home parks, RVs, RV parks, with the last 4 businesses I bought the same way. Most of the sellers in real estate don't want to own real estate anymore. They're trying to retire. And so what I do is I go to the RV park and I go, what's the RV park making? Okay, it's bringing in $60,000 a month. Okay, my management's going to be this, my such and such is going to be that. So I go back to Eric and I go, hey, Eric, in order for me to make 15 grand a month net on this, I could afford making $20,000 monthly payments to you from the cash flow of the asset I'm buying.
Mm.
Meaning, I go to Eric and Eric goes, really? Now you're going to ask the question of like, wait, so Eric, you can just make payments to Eric for 15 grand. Where does that 15 grand come from?
Mm.
The 15 grand comes from the RV park I just bought from him that's bringing in $60,000 a month to me. I give 15,000 to him every single month for the payment I owe him. I take the remaining money and I have management and people and staff and all of those things. And then I take home 15 to $20,000 a month in my pocket. Now, the next question is, well, why would he not just want to keep the RV park?
Yeah.
Guys, he's 75 years old. He wants to retire. He doesn't want to work and deal with tenants and managing employees and those types of things. And so he's like, I need to sell this. Okay, then why wouldn't he just sell it for cash? Well, now the next question you got to answer is, if he sells it for 5 million, the federal government's going to take $1.5 million of his $5 million. It's called capital gains tax. So he has 1.5 million reasons why he wouldn't just sell it for cash. I can give him $5 million in monthly payments that he can now live on like retirement. And his family will receive not only the $5 million over time, but they'll receive interest on that $5 million. So by the time he receives all the payments from the park, and he's my bank, he'll receive like $6.5 million that will go to his family and his grandchildren and everybody else. So I'm accomplishing his dreams of retiring, getting rid of the headache, and I'm giving him a higher dollar price. And he's giving me the ability to buy a piece of real estate that makes me $15,000, $20,000 a month. So I'm buying another RV park next week in East Texas. Same thing. Family's
Mm.
retiring. I found it on Crexy.com. The property will net us something around $25,000 a month. One asset, one purchase, one management team. How many phone calls do I deal with? I literally am maybe on one meeting a quarter for these things. There's on-site property management. The people who manage it are the people who live there. I give
Mm.
somebody free rent to just run the property for me. So owner finance and getting into real estate by acquiring things from people that are trying to retire is the game.
Wow. I don't think a lot of people have heard that. And I'm sure your students hear you talk about this all the time. I think
Yes.
people think like, oh, I'm in my condo. Should I Airbnb it or something like that? It's like the first thought. And I guess this kind of thinking applies to buying businesses too, right? Like, it's just there, we forget how human it is to be complete and be in a different era of life and what a business opportunity that can
Yes.
be. Um,
Yeah, like a
I,
laundromat, you'll hear Cody Sanchez, my friend,
yeah,
talk about this all the time. But like
yeah.
the thing that I'm known for is we'll buy laundromats on owner finance. So we go to the laundromat owner and they're retiring. We just bought one in Boston, and the seller says, I'm tired. I just want to live my life and travel. And this business has become a prison to me. Now, buying a business is a little bit more challenging because you now have employees and customers and all this kind of stuff that you, as the audience member right now, might go, I don't want to do any of that. The reason why I like real estate over the businesses that I buy is because my real estate doesn't talk back to me.
Yeah.
My business is, I've got employees, I've got customers, I've got Google reviews, Yelp reviews, all these things for my business. Real estate, my rentals, they don't talk to me, they don't talk back to me. My tenants don't know who I am. And bills continue to make money. I get cash flow. And the coolest part too about real estate that nobody ever really talks about, because it'll go over most people's heads, is you'll hear people like Donald Trump not paying taxes, and a lot of people get pissed off about that. But guess what? I haven't paid federal income taxes in 7 years,
Hmm.
but I made 8 figures last year, take home, I did not pay, not only did I not pay $1 in federal income tax, I got a refund.
Love that for you.
I got like $3,800 back. Why? Because the IRS rewards real estate investors for providing affordable housing to the United States. And when I provide affordable housing, then the IRS gives me a tax benefit so that I don't pay money on my active income.
Wow.
And so not only like I have friends that are NBA players that on their contract with the Phoenix Suns, they make twice as much money as I do, but when their take home comes home, they make the exact same money as I do.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because I don't pay federal income tax. So, well, that's crazy. He's scamming. No, I'm not scamming. I have 600 employees. I pay a lot of taxes. There, I just don't pay federal income tax. I pay property taxes. I pay all sorts of stuff. But real estate is for me, the reason why I love it is because I own it and I don't wake up and worry about it every day.
That was
Versus,
the next thing I was going to ask you is, do you feel the energy of 2,100 rentals? Like, granted,
no,
you have management teams, but I think about in 2008, my grandpa died and my dad inherited a little bit of money and he flipped like 80 homes. And he's, my dad's historically not been the best with money. So that money was gone by the end of it. But we profited and lived off of that for a really long time. So sometimes I think about having a lot of responsibility, having a lot of assets. And then the question is, how do you have a mindset or a relationship with wealth or success that you can hold it? Because even for me, sometimes those thoughts are really sneaky where I've got, 25 people, like I was telling you at Wise Whisper Agency. And some days I feel the weight of that. Like, oh God, I gotta keep money coming in. I gotta keep things happening.
yeah,
And sometimes I feel like the retired person at the RV park that wants to go travel
yeah.
the world and have a moment. So
Yeah, it is
yeah.
interesting too. Like I've had those thoughts in my life about the $5 million thought. Like if I had $5 million, here's what I would do.
Yeah.
And this is like where your mindset currently is. And I think your mindset will upgrade once you hit that $5 million mark. You'll go, what was I thinking? 5 million bucks. But I remember when I was in that same thought process, not honestly that too long ago. But the thought I had was if I had $5 million, I just want to be done. I don't want to work anymore. I don't want to answer emails. I don't want to stress out about employees. I don't want to stress about marketing. And oh my gosh, the second I felt like I got the hold of things, ChatGPT comes out and starts disrupting the whole world, and this thing disrupts and da 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 da. And there's this amazing book called Who Moved My Cheese that basically tells you no matter how good you are, every 2 years, the world changes and you're going to have to readapt, reinvent, do all that kind of stuff. So I've had those thoughts where I go, if I had $5 million, I'd be gone.
Yeah.
Okay, what would I do with $5 million in that mindset? Well, I would give my money to, there's a company I do put some cash with. The name of the company is Lone Ranger, and Lone Ranger will pay you 10% on your money for the rest of your life, interest only.
Mm,
So think about this. You have $5 million. They will cut you a check every single year for $500,000. What are they doing with your money? They're going and lending your money out at 14, 16, 18%. And they have $50 billion in cash. They've been around for 100 years, but you could live on $500,000 a year
yeah.
until you can't.
Tell me more.
Because think about if you take an inflation calculator right now, Ashley, you've got to be 29.
No, oh my God, I love you for that pace. I'm 37.
Okay, you're 37. Great. So let's say in 15 years, how much is $100,000 worth in purchasing power in 15 years?
Yeah,
50
way
grand.
less.
50
Yeah.
grand.
Yeah.
So basically, in 15 years, you're 52 years old. Guess what? You're now living on today's dollars of a quarter million. In 15 more years, you're now living on $125,000 with that same amount of money. So the reality is, even though I would have passive income coming in as like a stable thing, I'm going to go out and create new value in the marketplace
Right.
because I'm fearful of inflation. I'm fearful of government. I'm fearful of all of the things that are going on that I don't have control if I'm not producing new income. However, there is a nice feeling to have in your mind of like, I don't have to worry about at least my living expenses and I
Yeah.
can make better decisions. So my real estate for me, I'll tell you why I like real estate above any other business because my real estate is stable. And if I know it's stable and I have certainty in my real estate, I can go screw things up, Ashley, in my other businesses and be really aggressive, knowing that at least my bills are paid for with one RV park or two RV parks. I'm making money there. No matter what happens, I could lose everything in one of my business and go, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So the challenge is like when you're out there building businesses, like maybe in the phase you're in right now, your business brings in not only your money, it brings in your expenses, it pays for employees, existing employees, and future employees. And so the way I kind of got a little bit better about this was I created 3 buckets in my
Mm-hmm.
mind.
Mm-hmm.
So a bucket, you can't overfill a bucket or else it starts overflowing, right? So the way I
Yeah.
did my buckets is I drew them in a cascading way where you have bucket number one, and when it fills up, it starts pouring into the second bucket. And when the second bucket fills up, it starts pouring into the third bucket.
Mm.
So I created these buckets. My bucket was today's needs. Okay. My today's needs of like my monthly budget. Let's say it's $10,000 a month to survive, which there's no way I could survive on $10,000. I have 600 employees, right?
Yeah.
But when I was in a phase where it's just me, myself, and like 3 employees, I was like, all right, $10,000 a month I can survive. My next bucket was my growth bucket. And I would limit myself to only growing about an extra $5,000 a month, whether it's I'm going to waste $5,000 on a potential hire that doesn't work out. That's okay. That's part of the budget. Okay, I'll hire another person. And then I would have my last bucket, which was called my fuck it bucket. And if I made 10,000 plus the 5,000, I knew I was fine. And I knew that my company was growing because I was taking that 5,000 and investing. Anything I made over that, I put into my fuck it bucket. And I made it so that's where I go on my vacations. That's where I do the crazy things. That's maybe where I invest into Bitcoin or crazy things that I don't know are going to pan out. And then my job every single month was like, make sure my monthly nut is covered plus my growth bucket. And my growth bucket, I would limit it. And the reason being is because a lot of times when you're building your business in the very beginning, you can actually suffocate that fire very quickly.
Yeah.
Meaning, I watch people, I'm a Boy Scout, so I remember going out and camping and I would watch people trying to put a fire together and they would put too many logs on the fire too fast and it would smother and all it would do is smoke. And I would say that most people's businesses are exactly like that. They have too many things going on. They're trying to grow too fast. I would fear most people that grow more than 10 or 15 employees in their first couple of years. They're growing really, really fast and there's
Yeah.
still a lot of that stress.
I've tried to keep most people contractors like part-time, like
Smart.
as fully part-time as they can be before the state of California expects them to be an employee.
Yeah.
That's been a saving grace, is just getting good tax advice on like how do I status people to keep me nimble. But it does feel heavy. And I was thinking about the dance of business. And I don't know if it was this way for you, just based on you having different things than me, but it feels like you're on your own and you figure out a thing. And then you're like, wow, I just got myself covered in such an awesome way. And then you're like, well, I don't want, and then all of a sudden you get a little more business. And then you're like for me, the TED Talks, a lot of clients came to me. They're like, can you help me craft my talk? Can you help me get booked? Sure. Next thing I know, I got 5 of my first clients. And then it's like, oh no, I think I need help. I can't think like this. I can't do all these. Then you get team. And then you're like in a whole journey with team. Well, shit, this person's not as good as I thought they were. Like I gotta blah, 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 blah. And then you're in like the Macarena of team
Yeah.
building, which
Yeah.
is, like such a cluster. And then you get your team down if you're lucky, if you got the skills honed. I have a friend who's been dealing with team stuff for like 6 years. Every time I see her, I'm like, let me guess, your team is like putting you through agony. But for me, I figured out the team. And then it's like, well, shoot, I gotta afford this team, and the team comes with more team. Oh no, this person needs a VA, and then this person needs this. Okay, cool. Now I got monthly payroll and expenses. Now I need more business to come in. The organic business covered me more than enough. Now I need excess. I need overflow. And then you're trying to scale your company, you're paying for ads. Well, now my ads need to convert, and my sales closer and my DM strategy and da 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 da. So I guess I want to go into that with you of like, if you look at all your business building, obviously you have like magic, like really magic, not magical thinking as a therapy term where you're delusional, but magical thinking in how you do business. Like you've got a gift, you got a touch with what you've been doing with real estate. The way you think has clearly been of value to a lot of people, to yourself, to your family. Um, but when I think about, I don't know, your magic sauce outside of how you see real estate, what would you say is the thing that has been so good from a leadership perspective and building your business, managing people? Like, where do you feel like you've really, I don't know, been pretty zone of genius?
Vision casting is so important. This is actually one of the things I learned a lot from Dean of like sitting down with him, and I'm lucky that his office is just right down the road from me. So we'll stop by and my team will collaborate with his team, et cetera. But vision casting. So the challenging thing that a lot of people have when they're having leadership issues, one, the biggest issue with leading a team is always yourself. I have those problems too. I write them down weekly. I just got back from Tony Robbins' house with Dean the
Yeah.
last 4 days, and I wrote down all my imperfections, right? Being aware of that is obviously very important. That's one. Number two is the meetings will kill you, right? The amount of meetings you have to convey a vision will kill you. And I watch people that are like, I'm struggling with my team. I'm like, okay, either it's a leadership problem, you're criticizing them, you're not leading them properly, you're not nurturing their relationship with you, you're not nurturing their loyalty to the company where they can go and figure things out on their own and they can take their job to the next level. That's definitely part of it. But the other part is people don't know how to vision cast properly. And so they find themselves in multiple meetings over and over and over, like, hey guys, we've talked about this. Hey guys, we've talked about this. Hey guys, we're doing the DM thing all wrong. Like we talked about this, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, but did you sit down with your team and vision cast properly? Like I've got our whiteboards, they cost like $6,000. I buy the best possible whiteboards because we fill them up, we record the session, we then edit the session, we then put it into a module where if somebody has a question about their job, we go, oh yeah, great. Here's the link to the time we talked about the such and such. And I can't tell you how many times it's avoided hour-long meetings, 2-hour-long jam sessions trying to talk about something we talked about 3 months ago. And so I think that the magic touch is I actually have a really solid vision of where I think we're going the next 12 months. Will
Yeah.
there be pivots? Will there be stuff? Yes, but I lock myself in. As a visionary, you're a visionary too. Our biggest tendency is to have a little bit of a shiny object syndrome of like, oh, well, this is now working and now this is working and da 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 da. I'll give you an example of something that happened yesterday. I go to a podcast, a friend of mine, Jeremy Miner, I'm in his office here in Scottsdale. And my DM strategy for the longest time, Ashley, has been me manually answering all my DMs with video. Like I literally will reply to every DM, hey, that's a great question. That's a great question. That's a great question. People are like, holy shit, this guy's actually answering. And I do. The problem is I need to take that extra 6-7 hours every single week and I need to put it somewhere else. And so I hired some teams over the last 6 months and they have done nothing but fail at the sales aspect of the DM strategy because
Mm,
they're not salespeople. So I'm in
mm,
Jeremy Miner's office and Jeremy's like, you should be getting people to text you to your sales team. I'm like, wait, what? He goes, yeah, I have DM people, they answer DMs, but we're trying to do sequences and automations and people hate that. Why don't you just give them a cell phone number like, damn, Tammy, that's a great question. Why don't you text me and we'll talk about this off of Instagram DMs?
mm,
And so I'm like, what the hell? Why didn't I ever think about that? So what it does is it texts your team directly that now a salesperson is actually talking to them and they're in a CRM. Instagram DMs are not in a CRM.
mm,
And so it's like, if I give somebody, Ashley, I'm sure you've done this too, somebody in the DMs asks me a question and I have the answer via YouTube video.
mm-hmm.
I tell my team, take the YouTube video, deliver it to them. But guess what? Instagram's not going to remind me to follow back up with that person in 3 days and go, hey, did that video help your problem? Hey, can we have a further conversation? So Jeremy's like, you need to get people out of Instagram DMs as fast as possible, get them
Yeah.
into your CRM and get your salespeople delivering things to them because now they can have reminders. I'm like, oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
then I come back to my team today. I'm actually in my office, which I'm very rarely in my office, but I'm in my office today to change something.
Mm,
And that is tough because now the team who I've vision casted to this, that, and the other, this is our dream. This is what we're doing the next 12 months. Now I come in and I'm chaotic in some
yeah.
sense.
I hate when they say that. It's like, bro, this is being an entrepreneur. I don't know who talks like that, why I'm talking like that. I've spent too much time in San Diego, but like, this is what it is.
This is what it is. So I now have in my modules, I use something called Trainual
Mm-hmm.
and I have a mission statement. And what I do is I'll replace what I said prior with a new thing so that they're not confused. Because that now the thing is like, well, we might have a 2-hour meeting about how texting is going to replace what we're doing, but then in some of their minds, they're going to go, wait, hold on a second. So am I not supposed to do the stuff I was doing before? Are you adding more work to me? Are we taking this away? Like any of those questions, they get replaced in my old wording. So nothing, this is such an important thing, nothing pertaining anybody's job training of their job, changing of anything on their job, nothing is relied on just through a meeting or a Zoom. It is taken, it is edited, and it is put into Trainual.com to have a whole series on their specific job. Here's the things they're supposed to be doing. Here's the newest video. Here's the alterations. Here's the whatever. So they don't have any question of what their job is. And that solved, I'm not joking you, that solved probably 80% of my leadership issues.
Wow.
And the
Wow.
reason being is because, Ashley, whether we want to say this outwardly or not, you'll have a lot of employees that will blame their inability or their lack of doing their job on you because they're like, well, you changed your mind, so I was confused about my job.
Right. Right.
And you're like, there's no way you're confused about your job. We had a 2-hour meeting about it and I whiteboarded the whole thing. The second I took it and I cleaned it up on an edit and I put it in their Trainual module or their Trainual dashboard. And I said, hey, Tammy, here's the new job updates. If there's any question or confusion, please review here. After you've watched any of these videos, I'm always open for questions. Guess what? All of those blaming of, well, you changed your mind and I was confused, and all of it has gone away.
Yeah. You know, you're bringing up something so interesting to me, and it's about leadership and not just what you're exactly saying, but what's coming up for me is one of my top performers. I just love her, and she's a mini me. So we both have the same blind spots. Like we both move
Oh,
so
yeah.
fast, we miss things. But I love her for it because it's like she's right there with me on so many things. I've been noticing that sometimes we outsource our leadership because it can get
Mhm.
tiring. And what that can look like for me is like if I ask the person, I look at the numbers and I say, what's going on with the numbers? Oh, well, our ads aren't good. Oh, or this isn't good. And I believe them because I think I respect them. I think they're the smartest. So I just got put in my place. I don't know if you know Aaron Diamond or Jordan
Yeah.
Duggar.
Yeah.
Do you know them?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just so brilliant, I think, as marketers. And I was just with Aaron in Atlanta last week at their lake house just to hang out. And she was looking at my numbers and I had the same excuses I adopted from my team. I'm like, well, the reason this is because of that. She goes, oh, no, that's not the reason. Look at this gap right here in your spreadsheet. This is the reason. And it was something that nobody had said. And it was clear as freaking day. And I needed somebody outside of my entire team. And what it taught me was that no matter how smart people are working on your team, you you need to do your own investigating. And it's so hard to do that when you have so many things on your plate. And another thought I had was one of them recommended a sales closer for us, and the woman was a beast. She did an incredible job closing at another company, but she hasn't really nailed our offer yet. And I think our offer sells itself. If you're an entrepreneur that wants to get in front of 41 million YouTube subscribers, you probably want to do a TEDx talk. This is the price. This is what we've got the best team for it. Like what's the
Like
question?
literally, just to prove your point, when you said, I didn't know you did this, but you said, hey, we help people book and craft their TED Talk. I was like, why haven't I not hired Ashley for this?
Exactly. I'm telling you, Pace. It's like
Like
it's a very
my thought is like, where do I send the money?
Yeah, it's like this is the thing. It's like it's a very niche offer and it's so right for the people it's right for. And so this closer isn't getting it right. Like for some reason, the conversion's not there. And there's all the stories that come, right? And I don't want to put pressure on her because I've got a soft soul too. I don't want to be like
Yeah.
pressure, pressure, pressure. So I'm looking at the numbers. I'm like, you took 38 calls and closed two in your first month. How is that possible? We
It's not,
usually,
it's the only way it's possible. And this is what I've learned too. This is also a part of leadership is what I do is in the very beginning of us hiring people, we now ask people, what does success look like and what does failure look like? And we write it in stone and we say, all right, everybody comes on our team as a 30-day trial. You do not work for us. You are the 30-day trial. At the end of 30 days, we're going to look at, hey, remember we talked about what does success look like and what does failure look like? And we said in the very beginning that if failure is what the result is, we should just part ways.
yeah,
So it makes it easier for people with your personality and my personality to part ways with somebody.
yeah.
And you don't want to have that hard conversation. Nobody does. I don't want to have that hard conversation. So I was like, how do I preemptively have this conversation where I say, what does success look like? What does
What's the
failure look
bar? That's great. That's a
like?
really
And if you write that down in their job description and then you have it as a 30-day review, you can now offer them a full-time position. But the people that I have never, the people I haven't done that for, this is what ends up happening. And I still have them because I'm a soft soul too. I bounce them around from department to department to see if I can find a fit for them. But the reality is I end up firing them and going, I wasted a year and a half of sadly, not just my life and my money, but I wasted a year and a half of their life instead of me just saying, you need to go find something that's a better fit for you and a company that's better at leading you because I'm not good at leading your personality type. And so, what does success look like? What does failure look like? 38 calls. I would think that the people that are getting on those calls, I don't even
They've
need a
all seen our price. They all asked for our offer. Like what happened?
I don't even need this. What's funny about the right person, if I'm booking a call to talk to you about this thing, I'm 90% there. Most of the time you should be just order taking.
Exactly. That's the thing. And our conversion rate's usually around like 30%. It was just interesting because that's the story, right? This girl crushed it over here. So if something's wrong here, it's us. It's not the,
Of course. And then you have a tendency to believe her in the very beginning, like, hold on, wait, you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe the leads are worse. Maybe
yeah.
they're bringing in the wrong leads.
Yeah, you just question yourself because you're only one person and there's a
Yeah.
humility in leadership, right? It's like I hired you because you're smart. And the people I have on my team, I'm so inspired by them. Like one of them, she was at Apple over a decade. She wrote Apple's Credo and she made decks presented for Steve Jobs, and she's our executive creative director. The people on the team, it's just when you choose to run a business, you have a very unique skill set that got you where you are, right?
Right.
And it's interesting because one of my best people, she's so visionary. She's on top of the TEDx talks with me, but she's not a big business builder. And so sometimes I'm trying to operationalize and automate something. And she's like, well, but it works better this way. And she's speaking from an artisan's lens. And I'm like, we can't go big in any way possible if we think that way. And it's instead of thinking I need to insult anybody, it's like treasuring their gifts and remembering why you're here. And it's so hard to sometimes do that when you have so much on your plate. Pace, I could talk to you forever. I'm like, I've got this keynote right after this, and I'm like, man, I could just, I know you got plenty of gap conversations with your people. All right, here's success, here's failure. What are we doing? You got a whole thing you about to do with your DMs. I'm about to change my DMs because of this conversation. Um, I totally hear you and I appreciate you. And I hope our paths cross again.
They will.
And I'm here for your TED Talk anytime. We are fucking killing it, honestly. We're so good
I
at
would
it.
love to do that. I've
Yeah.
not ventured down that world. I will hire you immediately. Here's the funny
Yeah.
thing about the right customer. A right customer like me is like, oh, dude, what's the price? That's a
Yeah.
question. I'm not going to ask that question. The question I ask is, what can you take my credit card number via text so I don't have to get on a
Yeah.
phone call with a
I'm the
salesperson?
same. I'm the same. I walk into a car dealer and I'm like, I know what car I want. Can you just like, we don't have to
Yeah,
do this
I
monkey.
call the car dealer ahead of time and I go, I want the car that's on your website. You have the paperwork ready for me. I'm not coming in there to talk to you, work with your finance director.
Yes.
I'm not doing any of that. Get it ready for me or else I'm not coming in.
Yeah, I do that
I
too.
have no time. I'm a buyer. I know I'm a buyer. Don't
Funny.
make me get on the phone. Take my cell phone, tell me
Yeah.
what the service is and what to expect, and let's go do the freaking thing together. So I'll definitely hire you guys for the TED Talks.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to any reason to just be in touch because I just think you're so awesome, Pace. I see.
Come hang out anytime. Come to our office,
Yeah.
celebrate with my people, see what we're up to. Come, like you, I think you were talking to Brittany on my team or Sarabi or somebody. You are welcome in my office anytime. I've got 200
Thank you.
employees in here. You can meet all my people. How are we managing our money? How are we doing this? And a lot of what I'm doing is not real estate stuff. I have lending businesses, title companies. I've got all sorts of stuff. So you ever want to collaborate, come to Phoenix. When you're in
Thanks.
Phoenix, you stop by my gosh dang office and let's hang out.
Yes, that sounds so awesome, Pace. And where's the best place for everybody to find you, start with you, especially the person I was describing that's just getting their feet wet with real estate?
YouTube. I'm so in love with my YouTube channel. I'm not one of these people that just does whiteboard breakdowns. What I do is I actually do the business live. I show you guys how to get your first deal live by calling sellers and calling agents and working the deals on my YouTube channel. So if you're brand new to real estate, you want to get your first rental, you want to get your first fix and flip, just go to my YouTube channel. It's completely free and watch me do the business live.
This was so awesome. I'm so grateful for your time, for your stories, for your wisdom. I hope all of you have taken notes. Message me what you think of the episode. I'm sure it's a lot of thoughts. I have plenty. So thanks again, Pace.
Thank you. Appreciate you.